Badger Radio, radio with bite.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. Today's episode is Speshul Snowflakes, and before we begin, I want to explain the show title and say a bit about it. Often, opponents of the men's human rights movement will refer to the women who support it as special snowflakes. Apparently, when a woman's opinion differs from the hive mind, she's not motivated by a desire for logic, justice, or just having a different point of view, but a desire to be special. Special. Women are supposed to agree with other women, and when they don't, they must be disagreeing for superficial and selfish reasons. What's also interesting about the special snowflake insult is that it's also leveled against women who achieve, or rather, women who achieve but refuse to let feminists get their take by crediting feminism for the achievement. Underlying these ideas is the notion that women must take their worth from what they share with other women and nothing else. If they do take their worth from something else, they've somehow stolen something from other women and betrayed the sisterhood. That conception of women's value finds its parallel in our conception of men's value. Men take their value in how they differ from other men, how they distinguish themselves from other men. So we have women who have to conform and men who have to perform. Wouldn't it be so much better if both men and women had value as human beings and earned respect through their achievements? My name is Allison Tiemann, otherwise known as Typhon Blue, and I am a special snowflake. With me today on Honey Badger Radio is Karen Strom, otherwise known as Girl Writes What, and Della Burton. Joining us later will be Diana Davidson, and as always, we invite you, our listeners, to call in at 310-388-9709. That's 310-388-9709. Della, are you there?
Yep.
When and why did you become a special snowflake?
Well, it's kind of an evolution over time for me. I've always kind of realized that what I heard from media, from feminists, sometimes from other women in general, and from politicians about men really didn't match up with the men and the boys around me. And I kind of watched from the sidelines as they got ground up by various systems within society, especially our court system. And what really got me involved with the movement was looking for advice online and help with my husband's custody situation, and then later circumstances of some friends facing long-term malicious prosecution. And in me not conforming to the idea that this was the norm, this was expected, and that they must be guilty of something, I ended up facing quite a bit of flack in my life because of it. And I used to really think this was an area thing. I started out thinking it was just my little home area, then maybe all of Ohio. And eventually I started looking around and seeing that it was more systemic. It was more institutionalized. Reading more about the discriminatory laws, discriminatory policies, sort of tracing those back to their roots and where they came from. And eventually realized that there are a lot of people who are unaware of how skewed the system has become, why it's gotten that way, and how it's gotten that way. And so part of my reason for involving myself in the movement was because of that. I wanted to put the information out there that I had found and anything else I could find to help people to see what was going on and what the problems were. And I guess also in the hope of affecting change. And I really hope we can bring folks around to understanding that when they say human rights, they're talking about all humans and not just women, and not just within one political or social demographic. And I guess that's about it.
And Karen, how did you become a special snowflake?
It was when I initially had asked my husband for a divorce, my ex-husband, and I just stumbled across, just sort of randomly, I was involved in the erotica writers community, and somebody was saying, let's go over here and give these guys a hard time. Let's all pile on. And it was an article, it was like a a questionable article about how science fiction, hard science fiction, has gone the way of the dodo. There's always some romantic subplot or some soap opera aspect of science fiction now to bring in a female audience, blah, 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 blah. And I reacted, I just kind of was like, why are you whining about this? It's not really that relevant. Then I went and I clicked on some of the other articles on the site. And the other articles on the site were just kind of like, wow, that actually matches my experience. You know, prior to even becoming involved in the men's rights movement, I knew more men who were abused and battered by their women than the other way around. I actually knew one man who had a woman stab him because she was upset that he left her. He left the house for the night, basically, and she talked her way into his hotel room, and he woke up and she started to stab him. Right? It reflected my experience of things that literally women are not angels and men are not demons. And I went on a huge, like 3-4 month reading spree on all of this stuff. And that was it. I was just like, people have to know this.
Yeah, that's certainly true. People do have to know this. It seems to be an enormous blind spot in our society.
Mm-hmm.
For myself, I actually, when I was in my teens, I went to an all-girls school, and when I came back from that experience, I had started to become more radicalized as a feminist. And my mother actually took me aside and was concerned about the way I was going with my thoughts. And she gave me a book called The Princess at the Window. And it's a really good book. It's got a great overview of both, I would call it counter-feminism and a lot of the issues that men face. And I read that book, and that was sort of the beginning of looking at material that was not feminist approved, as you might say.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I read Christina Hoff Sommers' books, and then I got into Warren Farrell. And when I was at my university, I read the entire shelf of men's rights or men's issues-related literature. There is actually a shelf. It doesn't really compare to the bookcases full on feminism, but there's at least, like part of the Dewey Decimal System is reserved for men's rights. But and then after that, I got into a news group, sock.men, and I participated there for I think a couple years. And then someone from Stand Your Ground approached me to go to the Stand Your Ground forum. Some of the old timers might know about the Stand Your Ground forums, but it was one of the few places that there was talk about men's rights at that time. This is like in the early 2000s, like 2003, 2002, and there was maybe 600 people. That was it. And then after that, I ended up at Feminist Critics. If anyone's heard of that, it's a great little blog site. They are feminist critical, not necessarily men's rights related. And then from there, I started my own blog, and I ended up being published by Voice for Men. So that's my little story of how of my little journey into men's rights. It's been now, I think, 10 years. So it's been interesting. It's interesting to see the growth, actually, to go from a tiny forum with maybe 300, if that, more like 30 or 40 active people to men's AVFM, which attracts maybe 40,000 people over the course of a couple. It has like a 40,000 people wide audience, and then you have Reddit with presumably 80,000.
Yeah.
But if you take away the stock cup, it's way less. So it's so when people say, "Oh, the men's rights movement is going nowhere," not quite at all.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, like there was somebody posted a video about was a video of men's rights activism in India, and you're looking at over 100,000 active men's rights activists in India. You know, in India, just in India.
Wow.
Yeah. Like they are trying to reform alimony laws, they're trying to reform dowry laws, they're trying to reform all kinds of stuff, child custody laws. You literally have cases where men who are dying are denied access to their kids because the ex-wife is like, yeah, no, my child shouldn't be his father before he dies.
Yeah, well, it may be a different culture there. I know that I know in Japan, if a woman divorces a man, he does not get to see his kids. Period.
Yeah. Well, I think it's actually there's a huge issue with what Indian magistrates seem to see as or describe as false allegations of rape, and the problem with that is that they aren't false allegations. Right? Basically, if a man has sex with an unmarried woman and doesn't marry her, he's raped her.
Well, I can imagine that would be a big force multiplier for the men's rights movement in India.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That he literally is, if he has sex with her, he's bound to marry her. If he chooses not to marry her, then she can bring a claim of rape against him. And judges in India right now are saying, we need to do something about this because there's just way too many frivolous claims of rape. You know, our society is changing. We're becoming a little bit more open about sexuality. We're not condemning extramarital sex or premarital sex the way we used to. Why are we still prosecuting men and trying to put them in prison for doing what the culture says is fine just because they didn't go ahead and marry the woman? So...
yeah.
Just because she didn't get the long-term relationship that she wanted. And this is one of the things that Temple University football player, right? The reason why she accused him was that he basically did not give her the long-term relationship that she wanted after their sexual liaison.
Well, it's like in the West, it's almost like we're folding in those archaic breach of promise laws into rape law.
Oh, yeah, and seduction. Like, why don't we just make seduction illegal again? Let's make it a felony again. That way men will know where they stand. It won't just be based on how she feels the next day. He'll know when he's crossing the line between what's legal and what's not.
Well, and that's basically what they're trying to do, except that they want it to be called rape.
Well, the most amazing thing is I was reading on Judgy Bitch today. She linked to an article. I forget what article it was that I was reading on Judgy Bitch, but she had linked to an article on Jezebel where one of the women, either the author of the article or one of the commenters was like, oh, yeah, I totally met my husband on a drunken escapade, and, you know, who knew blackout sex could turn into a fulfilling 3-year relationship? And I'm like...
And they didn't jump on that comment?
That was freaking rape, according to your definition. Doesn't matter how you feel about it in the morning. You weren't capable of making that judgment when you did, according to you.
That's something that they're another area where they're entirely hypocritical.
Well, and
they want to claim that it doesn't matter how the woman feels about it in the morning if feminists want to call a sexual liaison rape. But if the woman feels like it's rape in the morning, even if it doesn't fit the definition of rape, well, then it was rape too. So it only matters if how the woman feels about it, if she's going to call it rape.
Well,
if they want to call it rape and she doesn't, then it doesn't matter.
Well, good point. That's a really good point, Della, that, you know, feminists want to frame women's opinions in terms of what benefits feminism. And it benefits feminism to choose rape at every possible opportunity.
Look at the Mary Koss study. right? A significant number of the women that she judged had been victims of rape or attempted rape, something like 40%, right, had gone on to have further sexual relations with the men that they were deemed to have been raped by, right? This is that feminist from Jezebel in a nutshell.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
It's only rape if I don't like the outcome.
Yeah, it's even worse than that. 75% of the women who said or were in Mary Costa's study were in the rape category actually said that they weren't raped. So you can't agree with a woman's opinion if they're saying they're not raped, but you have to agree with a woman's opinion if they're saying they are raped.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, no, everything is rape.
Everything is rape. Rapey, rape.
We even have a Redditor at Our Men's Rights who comments frequently. His username is Everything is Rape, and every single time that he comments, he basically turns any given situation. He says, denying a woman her opinion or saying that she's wrong is, violating blah, 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 therefore it's rape. And it's hilarious because you see, like, it's just such a beautiful lampooning of the mindset that everything, depending on what the woman feels, can be construed to be rape.
Well, not depending on what the woman feels. If the woman feels that it wasn't rape, it's still rape according to the feminists.
Yeah.
But because feminism.
Because feminism. But it's
But you got to realize, even us, even we're rapists. I mean, there's like so many users in chat right now on our page, and I saw earlier before the show some of them said they'd been drinking, so you're raping them right now.
Oh my God! Like
phones are entering their ear canals and causing those untold oral trauma.
Oh my goodness!
And they can't consent to listen to our show if they've been drinking.
Masturbating while drunk is self-rape.
Yes.
I'm guilty like 1 billion times over. 1 billion at least. I should actually be put in prison until I should be buried under the prison. Just based on that. And then looking at my boyfriend, me not resisting his advances when he's drunk, I have raped him.
Well, no, that doesn't really hold because men have some sort of ability to remain sober while drunk.
Oh,
yes.
Right.
Well, men are magic.
Yeah. That makes much more sense.
Well, at least I'm consistent because all of the times that I have been drunk and I have had sex, I have not called it rape. And so I don't consider me having sex with my boyfriend when he's drunk and making advances and being the one who is initiating. I don't consider that rape. But you literally have Rebecca Watson saying the scene from Big Bang Theory where the drunk chick shows up. She shows up and he drags the guy into the bedroom and basically says, "You're going to have sex with me," right? He has raped her. Can you imagine a drunk man barging into his ex-girlfriend's room, dragging her into the bedroom and saying, "You're going to have sex with me"? Can you imagine anyone saying that woman raped him?
No, not really.
No, I really can't. But feminists will proudly proclaim the opposite, that when it's the woman who's drunk and drags the man in and basically coerces him into having sex.
I used to have a friend in college that did that. She would get drunk and then just grab a random guy and drag him off into another room for sex. And later on, after she had taken a women's studies course, she thought that she was just raped over and over again.
Oh, my God.
She honestly believed that all those times that she went and found some guy and dragged him off for sex, that he had done something to her instead of the other way around.
Like,
it was all their fault.
I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, this is why I'm an MRA. This is why I'm a fucking MRA, because this bullshit is insane. freaking insane.
Of course, some would argue that we are into men's rights because we have Stockholm syndrome.
Oh my God! Or hey, here's the one that I get all the time because I have a large number of subscribers and I do monetize my channel. So what I am doing, and hardcore, radical, freaking man-hating feminists like Sale Polani, a.k.a. Diana Boston, have accused me of being a con artist who is convincing men that they are victims when they aren't actually victims. So I'm preying upon men who are feeling put upon or whatever.
Okay, let me
in order to make money.
Let me get this. You're convincing men of something of being victims when men's identities are wrapped around being strong and being capable and not being victims.
Yeah.
That is like the biggest projection act ever.
Mhm. Yeah, and she's saying I'm doing it for the money.
And of course, the men's rights movement never existed before you came along.
Oh yeah.
There hasn't been a men's rights movement for decades or anything. You know, it was just the last few years of
But yeah, apparently, I guess in their cosmology, we've been severely abused, and that's why we are trying to talk about men's issues, bring attention to men's issues, and engage in activism to bring attention to those issues and try to get other people to care about them. It's because we're abused.
Oh yeah, no. Oh, I have had a feminist say that I am abused, right? And then in the next breath say that I obviously beat my boyfriend.
Well, he's abusing your fist with his face.
I don't freaking know what the fuck, right? Like literally they will grasp at any straw, any single reason that they can think of or conceive of to discredit you. You beat your kids. You beat your boyfriend. Your boyfriend beats you. You have Stockholm syndrome. You're a chill girl. You're looking for male attention. You're a fat, ugly whore who is desperate to hold on to her boyfriend.
Yeah.
You just want the money. All of these things. And it's like 90, like you even look at the accusation about men who are MRAs, you're just a neckbeard loser, right? And I'm thinking, well, that applies to David Futrell and P.Z. Myers and God knows how many other freaking feminist men.
Yeah.
They all have fucking neckbeards. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them, right? And
it's the kind of stuff that they come up with because they don't have to vet their statements through any kind of filter of logic or rational thinking or any kind of reasonable discussion at all. Nobody ever questions anything anybody else says. They don't, they'll argue about fine points of doctrine, but they won't argue about the big things. So they can make the most ridiculous and asinine statements on earth, and they don't worry that they're going to be called on their stupidity because they're used to their feminist echo chamber. The thing that really gets me, though, about the whole neckbeard insult is that they're all about breaking down gender roles and breaking down gender stereotypes and getting rid of, well, it has to be this if you're going to be masculine and everything, and we can't demonize anything and we can't make anything required, and then they turn around and they give a stereotype as an insult. Oh, you have the ability to grow facial hair all the way down your neck. Shame on you for having facial hair. Well, what the heck?
Yeah, well, there's a reason why they have to do these sort of simplistic, in some cases projection and simplistic insults, is because if they didn't, they would have to acknowledge that we have a point. And in a lot of ways, we are the more dangerous elements of the men's rights movement because it's really difficult to argue self-interest. So they try to twist some sort of self-interest out of our actions. And it's difficult because, I don't have any. I'm not saying anything for people who do have donate buttons, but I don't have a donate button. I don't take money from this at all, and I am not actually really that interested in attention. I don't put stuff out.
The opposite of interested in attention.
if I were interested in tension, I would just ramble off a list of problems that men face with my boobs out.
Yeah.
And I don't do that. I actually put forward analysis that in a lot of cases it's difficult to follow, and a lot of guys find insulting. So, but with that, and I'm sorry to cut you guys off, we do have to go to ads. We're going to take a short break, and after the ads, we'll be talking with Diana. So stay tuned. And also remember, if you have any questions or comments, call in. Once again, the number is 310-388-9709. That's 310-388-9709. Okay, cue the ads.
Ow! He's on you! You feminist, you vipers, you dragons, you evil monsters. Oh, hello everyone. Didn't see you there. Angry Harry here, still fighting after all these years. So don't forget to visit angryharry.com to arm yourself with cognitive cluster bombs. Bombs with which to blow the wicked feminists to smithereens. Ah! Oh! Ah!
Join ABFM radio director James Huff and ABFM news director Robert O'Hara every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central for A Voice for Men News and Activism. This is the weekly radio show that brings you news from the front lines of the men's rights movement, along with interesting and important guests. Come and get your weekly dose of news and commentary about what's going on with the state of men and boys all over the world and what's being done about it. Listen every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central Time. The time for waiting on the sidelines is over. The time to act is now.
Hey everybody, this is Aaron Clary, a.k.a. Captain Capitalism. Look, I got a great book out there for any student who's going to college or for any parent who has a kid going to college. The title of the book is called Worthless. It is the indispensable young person's guide to choosing the right major. You can find it on Amazon.com. It's in paperback, Kindle, and Audible, all for a lot less than what your kid is going to pay for tuition. That's Worthless. You can find it on Amazon.com.
That's the sound of a glass lens being broken. Most people view the world through a narrow lens, ignoring factors and concepts that don't fit their predetermined worldview. I'm Della Burton, author of Breaking the Glasses, written from an anti-feminist perspective with a focus on men's rights and certain social issues with an unconventional spin. You can check it out at breakingtheglasses.blogspot.com.
Hello, this is Fiedelbogen. I don't like feminism, and I'm not shy about saying so. I don't want to argue or debate with feminism. I want to put it out of business. And on the Counter-Feminist blog, I discuss 1,000 ways, both large and small, to make this happen. Point your browser to counterfem.blogspot.com.
Are you interested in men's rights? Do you have no one to talk to? Do you live in Saskatoon or the surrounding area? Then come visit us at mensrightssaskatoon.com. Enter your contact info, and we'll keep you abreast of meetings and events that we're holding in Saskatoon. That's mensrightssaskatoon.com. Once again, mensrightssaskatoon.com. Serving the people interested in men's rights in the Saskatoon area.
I used to be afraid. I couldn't make the right decisions for myself. The world outside my home terrified me. I was reluctant to go out by myself. Now, thanks to the patriarchy, I don't have to worry or even think. The patriarchy is going to make all those decisions for me, and that makes me feel safe. Please give generously to the patriarchy so they can help you as much as they've helped me.
Hi, I'm Nick Renner, Supreme Grand Wizard of the Patriarchy. What you just listened to was one of our many satisfied, subjugated non-males. While I wouldn't normally recommend listening to one such as this, I'm making an exception. As I'm sure you already know, I'm running for City Councillor of Ward 8 in the upcoming election here in Edmonton. Although the patriarchy is in control of everything and totally real and totally not made up, we find ourselves somehow strapped for cash. So please, find your way to the Patriarchy Campaign donation button on mensrightsedmonton.com.
Welcome to Revelations with Ellen Pitsey.
For so many years, feminists have been able to demonize men under their artificial argument called patriarchy.
Hi, I'm Dean Esme. Join me and Aaron Pitsey every other Saturday on Revelations with Aaron Pitsey. We air at 4 p.m. London time and 10 a.m. Central time in the U.S. every other Saturday. The truth is that men and boys aren't privileged in our society, and domestic violence not a gender issue.
Come listen to A Voice for Men Radio, the voice of Europe.
The voice of Europe.
This show is probably the only one at this point addressing the issues concerning men and boys at a European level.
The voice of Europe.
Every Friday on 7 p.m. London time and 1 p.m. Central time.
This is the place where feminism gets to be called out on its lies and propaganda, and the state is invited to get out of people's lives.
I am Lucian Bulsan, and this is the voice of Europe.
And we're back. Once again, the call-in number is 310-388-9709. And we're also welcoming Diana Davidson to the show. Diana's been writing for AVFM since May. Some of her very popular articles include It's a Woman's Problem, Women Don't Own Sex, Jacelyn Friedman, Clit as Big as the World, and she also blogs at dianadavidson.wordpress.com. Welcome, Diana.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, I'm doing well. How did you become a special snowflake?
Well, I've probably been an MRA for a long time. I just didn't know what that was at the time. I guess around February, I was going to this philosophy group, and they had the subject of the night as Peter Pan syndrome. And so we were supposed to read this article by Kay Heimowitz before we went. And I was just stunned when I read it. She was going on about, what's wrong with men, that they're not doing what women want them to do. And, I'm just like, oh, my God, how do you say that about, like, an entire gender and the judgment of, well, first of all, I get annoyed when people judge, which happens all the time, judge kids, the younger generation. Oh, younger generation sucks. In this case, it was like, oh, men, they're just not living up to women's expectations. And one of the things that she said women were busy doing was out there shopping. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's probably true. They're shopping, spending all the men's money, and then wondering why they're not, resupplying. But anyways, of all the thoughts you can get when you read that article, I was on a forum, so I started a thread about it, and some feminists showed up and said, oh, you're one of those MRAs. And originally, accused me of being a guy, and I was like, what are you even talking about? So when I looked up MRA, I found a voice for men, read a few things, and I was like, well, I'll be darned, I am. And basically just found a place where I fit in, right? But I don't really deal with people as men and women in normal life. I just deal with them as individuals, and I assess them, as they present themselves and, intelligence level based on the kinds of things they say. And, once I started thinking more about it and looking for gendered stuff that goes on around me, I was like, oh my God, look at all the crap. There's two things that really drive me nuts: feminism and social justice warriors. And the two of them are mixing quite happily together. So essentially what it comes down to, I guess, is just someone on the internet is wrong. And I have trouble going to sleep until I convince them they're wrong. So,
I know.
hence the articles.
It's the dread scourge of the internet. There are so many people who are wrong.
Also, feminists going around telling women that they can't do whatever they set their mind to, that's really annoying. I mean, nobody in my life has ever said that to me before. It's never been true. And that's entirely like their core line is that, we're all oppressed. You can't do what you want to do. And it's like, only women are telling us that. Mm-hmm. Only the feminists think that's true. I've never had a guy discriminate against me because of my gender. I just show up, and I did work in construction for a bit, and they go, oh, you can't do that. And I said, oh, what, the thing I'm doing? And then they just kind of like, oh yeah, true. Yeah. But that's not like men oppressing you, and somebody says that. That's an individual who looks at you and doesn't think you can do something, and then you either prove them wrong or you don't.
Exactly. You know, like, this is what I found is that men operate on a meritocracy, and they will actually, I mean, you, as a woman who can perform on the level of a man, you get extra kudos, right? You get extra credit for being able to pull your weight the way a man would, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't really get, you know, like, I have never worked with a man who wasn't willing to give me a chance, ever. You know, even going to Home Depot with my boyfriend, right? Looking for drywall and all of the supplies and everything, and, you know, home improvement projects. And the Home Depot expert initially started talking to him, and he was just like, I don't know what the hell, this is her project, right? And then he turned and he looked at me, and I asked him some informed questions, and he was like, oh, yeah, no, sure. And it's almost like they get more excited that there is a woman who is actually showing interest in something they're an expert in.
I love it. Sometimes a guy will say, oh, I need a screwdriver. I'll go a Phillips or a Robertson.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they just kind of like, you know, I'd say about a third of the time they don't even know. They're like, the square one.
Yeah, well, you know, I say the square one or the cross one or whatever, right? My big deal is that nobody uses the size that's appropriate, right? So.
Yeah. Well, one of the things on my list of reasons to be an MRA too is I find that you know, I get along better with men than I do with women, and so the idea that men should change is really disturbing to me.
Yeah, I really wouldn't want men to behave the way women do. I don't know that I would want women to behave the way men do, though.
Yeah, again, I guess it just comes down to, like, individuals, right? Everybody's got their own unique personality, and you either get along with them or you don't. And it is pretty genderless when you approach it that way. But yeah, I think, you know, men are pretty great. When I worked in construction, I'm, you know, full of innuendo all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I used to have a great time all day long. Just like you can come up with the best innuendo. I've had threads online with innuendo and stuff. It's a lot of fun. But, you know, you go into a normal workplace, you can't say anything. You can't look at somebody for longer than 5 seconds. And just like, they're just destroying it. Like, you go to work now and it's just like, you know, waiting until the clock tells you can go home. You know, you can't have fun there.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Like, I've always really, I've always felt comfortable around men. This is one of the things that, when I had, like, before I was an anti-feminist, when I was still a non-feminist, I was a non-feminist because I really hadn't had any experience where I felt men wronged me any more than women had wronged me. Like, you know, like, yes, there were men that had, you know, been douchebags to me. There were plenty of women and girls who had also been douchebags to me, right? Like I never, ever had the idea that women were exempt from, like, moral judgment, that they never did bad things, and that the idea that they only do them because they're forced into it or they're coerced into it or they're pressured into it or that some man is making them do it. That just seemed bizarre to me because partly because the experiences that I had with men who, a neighbor that I used to sort of listen through the floor to him being abused by his girlfriend. And then my ex-husband, who had an ex-girlfriend who had, you know, attempted to stab him. He still had scars on his arms that were still healing when I met him from defensive wounds. And, you know, and literally he said, there I am lying face down in the dirt with the cop's knee in my back after the neighbors call the police. And she's still in the house, throwing things, smashing things, and screaming, and they're going to haul me off until I finally get it across to them that her children are still in the house hiding in the closet. Right? So
yeah,
it was only the fact that the children her children were potentially in danger, that meant he didn't get arrested.
Yeah, and it's getting worse that way.
Oh, definitely. It definitely seems to be getting worse. What I find interesting about all of this is that and I've lost my train of thought.
It's killing us.
Yeah,
but you're right. It is getting worse, and from what I've seen, just with the situations that I've been witness to, and these are more false allegation situations. But one of the two false allegation victims, his ex-wife, who was falsely accusing him, went on to another marriage. And her second husband, she and her second husband were in a reciprocal domestic violence type relationship. They beat on each other. The reason that my friend got custody of the child that he had fathered with her was because the second husband beat the child, and they were able to. Well, his wife took pictures of the child's face, and Child Protective Services looked at that and had to award him custody. But the second husband, we saw online his description, his statement for the domestic violence incident that got him sent to jail. And the incident was they were having a fight. She was yelling and screaming. She was throwing things at him. Some of them were very heavy things. He thought about going out of the window on a second floor and decided that it was too dangerous and went past her out the door. And the thing that he got arrested for was that he had to shove past her to get out of the room, in which she was throwing things at him. And so it was okay for her to throw things at him, but it was not okay for him to run away if he had to run past her.
Yeah, that actually matches my experience with my downstairs neighbors, because sometimes it would go on for an hour or more where she was yelling, screaming, verbally abusing, throwing things at him, heavy things from the sound of it, and following him from room to room. Like, he would go and slam the door, and you could hear him begging, just leave it be, just let it go for now. We'll discuss it when you're calm. And then she would just be screaming, and then finally he would hit her once, just one time. And everything would be silent after that. Everything seemed to be like just, and then 20 minutes later they'd be out pushing the baby in the stroller. And that, what he did, hitting her after an hour and a half of provocation and physical violence and verbal assault, right? That would be considered abuse. But what she did, that's just fine. That's okay.
Yeah, I had a situation actually at the end of last year where somebody I worked with was coming into work and showing me bruises all the time. So I'm, oh my God, look at this. And I was like, this is really bad. So, I said, well, let me take some pictures of it. Let's start documenting this, right? She has a kid with the guy that she lived with. And I said, this is really serious. Obviously, it's a destructive environment, right? You need to get your kid out of there. And so as, I started trying to help her put together, some sort of a plan for how to leave, she goes, well, actually, I kind of threw stuff at him first. She goes, I kind of start the fights.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she goes, well, like that bruise, right? I threw a plate at him. He threw it back at me.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I don't really care about that now. Let's check the documentation, but you still have to get out because it's still a bad environment for your kid. So I helped her get to a point where she could move out, get her own place, and, helped her make some decisions. Well, left them up to her, really, because it's her life, but kind of gave her some guidance. She got on her own, and then she was just like, oh, I don't have his benefits plan anymore. So she took him back in again.
Yeah.
Oh, well, right? The entire reason was because she wanted his benefits plan.
Well, one couple that I worked with, they were, maybe mid-20s, and they just sort of met at work and got together, and they both had issues, right? Like, he had a temper. I knew he had a temper. I mean, it was one of those quick to fire off and quick to cool kind of tempers, where he would have a conflict with a coworker. He'd kind of, yell a bunch of insults, and then he'd come back and offer an olive branch about 15 minutes later, right? So he was actually quite easy to get along with, and she was a grudge holder and very, very much, wanting to be in control of things. And one weekend they had, I think her parents had purchased them a weekend at a resort, and they went to the hotel, and the first night they went to the bar. She was drunk, he was less so, and she started picking fights. She was very good at this. She started picking fights, taking offense at what other people were doing or saying around her, and picking fights. And eventually it moved, and he was always very much, just calm down, honey. He's always been like that, just calm down, honey. Eventually the conflict moved between her and these 4 or 5 other people, moved into the lobby of the hotel, and she started smashing stuff in the hotel lobby. She started, busting up stuff. She was shoving people around. She was being assaultive. She was laying her hands on people. Nobody had touched her at this point, right? The hotel staff called the police, and at this point, her boyfriend panics. He's like, oh my God, my girlfriend's going to get arrested. So he drags her out of the hotel lobby. He kind of shoves her in the passenger seat of the truck. He gets behind the wheel, and he's going to go. He's going to go because he needs to protect her from her own behavior, right? The hotel staff, because it was the hotel that they were staying at, had his license plate and make and model, all of that on record. So the police set up a roadblock, right, and nabbed him. And so he was up on, I think he blew a .09 or a .10, so just over the legal limit, right? He's up on DUI, he's up on obstruction of justice, he's up on a whole bunch of charges. She got charged with nothing. Nothing.
Well, I guess that's what happens when you put yourself in, between a bullet and...
They had video evidence. This is the thing. They had video evidence of her assaulting people. They had video evidence of her destroying the hotel's property, right? She didn't get charged with the goddamn thing. And here's the thing. She was pissed at him because he got fined $2,500, right? And he had to pay lawyer's fees to fight all this other stuff, right? And so he couldn't contribute to the rent.
Well, it just reminds me of, I don't know, I think it was John the Other had said something about, I'm not even going to help. If I see something going wrong with some chick, I'm not even going to help it. And it's like, put yourself between the white knighting thing.
God, yeah.
It's just tempting for, I can't imagine why guys, would do anything like that anymore. Because that's inevitably the way it turns out. The guy ends up with more trouble, and the girl walks away just laughing. And
well, my boyfriend, when he was younger, I think he was 19 or 20, he came across, he was walking, he lived in a rough area of town, he was walking home at night, and he comes across a guy who's smacking his girlfriend around on the sidewalk. And so what does he do? White knight that he was at the time, he puts the guy in a headlock, right, to try and get him to calm down and take his hands off his girlfriend. And what does she do? She starts punching him and screaming, "Get your hands off my boyfriend."
That's really common.
And he was just like, okay. He puts both his hands up and says, "That's fine. You guys go to town," and just keeps walking and never interfered in anything like that again.
It's a problem police officers see a lot. They walk into a domestic violence situation, even situations where the woman has called them to come and protect her. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they start putting the handcuffs on the guy that she says is the perpetrator, she'll jump on him, she'll try to beat him away, she'll do anything to get them to not arrest that guy.
Yeah.
And I've even seen. Well, my brother made the mistake of getting between two girls in a fight in a bar. Huge mistake. Never ever get between two girls in a fight, and especially not if you're a guy, because then they'll just play blow on you. But and what ended up happening with him was this girl. There was one on the bottom on the floor, and the other one was just beating the hell out of her. And he stepped in because he was concerned that one girl was going to kill the other girl, and so he actually got in between them and took the hits while his friends calmed down the girl that was doing the beating. And then when he finally could, turn around and see that the girl that had been hitting him on the back was no longer in attack mode, she was no longer in the picture, he turned to help the other girl up, reached out to her, said, "Are you okay?" And she pulled her hand out of her purse and maced him in the face.
Yeah.
Which is gratitude.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've said to my husband. Don't get involved, because what will happen is you will have two angry people, possibly criminals, possibly armed, now wanting to kill you.
Yeah.
Getting in.
And that's what I basically said to him is, if there's two girls fighting, you just let them fight. Call the cops if you have to. Get a fire hose, but do not step in between.
No, it's absolutely like. But this whole thing, the whole idea of getting in between two girls fighting, getting between a man who's beating on his girlfriend or his wife, it's all based on, like, she needs my help. She needs somebody to protect her. She needs blah, blah, blah. She's a victim. He's a perpetrator, right? Somebody's perpetrating against her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, if there was some kind of gratitude involved when a man does this, I could sort of see it, but there doesn't seem to ever be, not in any kind of domestic or interpersonal dispute. In a random shooting, sure,
no,
right?
Then there's usually a great deal of gratitude,
or the absence of shame. Like, look at the Batman shooting and all the guys who were shamed for not taking a bullet for their, it's...
Oh, man, the one girl, like, she was like, yeah, no, I'm still going to marry him, even though he panicked and ran, right, instead of staying and leaping over my body and protecting me and my kid, right? He panicked and ran and saved himself.
Going to stop bullets?
Well, and people were like, "What, are you crazy? Why would you marry that guy?" And I'm just like, because he's a human being.
Yeah. One of those guys was actually, he's got family in my area, and I work with somebody that knows them, and I listened to her talking about it, and they were all just completely flummoxed by the media coverage around that, the shaming of the guy who ran.
Oh yeah.
And this is something that, the guys that protected their loved ones, that is something that should be celebrated in them. That was above and beyond. They're heroes for doing that because they did something great and courageous.
Yes.
It's not something owed, it's not a debt, it's not the norm, it's not anything but a courageous act.
It's not expected. I mean, it's like a mother who dies to save her child.
Yeah.
Right? Like one of that was called The Seventh Sign or whatever it was, a movie with Demi Moore, right? She dies to save her child.
Yeah.
She dies to save her child. She's willing to save her child. That's a heroic act, right? That's not just expected. It's not just something that people do.
And it should never be just expected.
Heroism. But if they're socially shamed for not doing it.
Well, that's the morality comparison issue, right? Where they say, well, you should morally, instinctively do that. So it's less like honoring the heroicism of the person who does it, that they're more intent on comparative shaming of anybody who ends up not doing that, right? It could be a ton of reasons why instinct wouldn't kick in necessarily in a situation where you'd want try and help the person, but there could have been something else that you instantly reacted to, jumped away because something was flying at you or something, you know what I mean? Like, there's all kinds of things that can go on, but everybody's so keen whenever they read a story to make moral judgments of everybody.
And we all want to believe that we are selfless and good people and that we would do the most heroic thing, that we would, save the kids in a burning building or protect our loved ones in a fire. And we never really know what we're going to do until we actually get into that emergency situation. And when it's a split-second decision like that, it's the same thing as when people fail to hold their shocked tempers in a split-second situation. Somebody walks in on a horrendous act, and in a split second they attack and kill the person committing the act. It's not the same thing as when you plan ahead and do something like that, or when you have time to think and you still fail to take action when you see something bad happening. This is a completely different situation, and I think people judge because they want to believe about themselves. I would do this. I would protect. I would take care. I would be the good person. And so they get mad at somebody that they think didn't do what they want to believe they would do.
But so few people are like that. I mean, like, I remember being at the lake with my kids and about 40 other people. And I was about 50 feet from the edge of the lake, and my kids were wading in the shallows. And my daughter, who was always braver than she was smart when she was little, she went deep enough that she lost her footing and went under. And literally, I was the first person. There were about 25 people between me and the water, most of them looking to the water. I was the first person in the water to pull her out. Right? Like, people don't tend to just instantly respond to a crisis. They don't.
Mm-hmm. Most people don't instantly respond to a crisis. Most people want to believe they would, and that they would do the right thing or do the thing they think is right.
But it
doesn't necessarily mean that's what people do. And then they expect it more of men than they do of women. Men are expected to be the heroes. Men are expected to be stronger. Men are expected to be more disposable.
Oh, yeah.
But,
totally. Well, it's, like, nobody's going to call a woman a coward for standing outside a burning building and screaming, "Help my baby."
Yeah.
Right?
No.
But the man who refuses to go in and do it is going to be a coward.
And that actually brings up maybe a way of how this relates to the topic. I think, that statement that feminists make about men being afraid of strong, independent women?
Mm-hmm.
I think we've all heard that. It's a way of shaming men into, even though if somebody is genuinely strong, you should be somewhat leery of them because they can hurt you. But anyway, I think it's really feminists who are afraid of strong, independent women. And I think that sort of ties into the idea of expecting women to display their strength and heroism in the same way that men are expected to. I think feminists really don't want to see that, considering how much they shame women who do achieve. They don't seem to like women making a name for themselves outside of feminism or outside of something they can share with other women.
Yeah, no, like look at Margaret Thatcher. I owe nothing to the women's movement. And who's the most hated female leader in history?
Yeah.
By feminists, right?
They shame women for independent success, and they shame women for overcoming hardship.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But we need to take some callers here. The echo is back. Our friend the echo is back. Oh, well. Moving on. I see that Peter Fox is online. I'm going to bring Peter Fox on. Peter, are you there?
Yeah. Oh my God, so awesome. Yeah. I'm sorry, but first time I finally catch on to hear one of these radio talk shows, and well, Is Karen there? Can do shout out to Karen very quick?
Hi.
Karen. Hello, man. Hello, Karen. I'm honored to say that. To me, it's like an honor to finally talk to you. And well, you know, as you can tell, I'm a young person, yeah. But I'm very inspired to hear your knowledge you spread in your videos and whatnot.
Oh, awesome! Thank you.
Okay. Well, anyway, getting the topic at hand. Sorry about that. I'm just excited. Sorry. Yeah, I'm a young man working. I work in a nursing home, and recently, what's up in my partner changed somebody in a nursing home. The resident's wife asked me because I'm like the youngest employee there, and probably one of the few males there working. And they asked me, how come I'm not married? They asked me if I'm guessing I'm married, and I said no. And then she tells me I shouldn't get married. But of course, I want to get married, but then after reading a lot of your videos about why men are not married, and seeing that, I hear a lot of other men that men take advantage of in this society, hear how other men go to other nations to get wives. I'm wondering, should I get married here in the United States? Should I marry a woman here from the U.S. soil, or go find a foreign wife? And what's your opinion? Sorry, I stuttered.
Which one do you want an opinion from? Just all of us, or Karen?
All of you.
In my opinion, you should probably repatriate if you want to get married. Don't get married here, and don't bring a woman over to here.
Yeah, because no matter where they're from, once they get here and they immerse themselves in the culture, they like, human nature is not static. It's not static. It's entirely dependent on the environment and different stimuli and all of these things, right? So you can have the most wonderful woman in one environment, and you put her in a different environment, and this goes the same for men, right? And she will become something else. She will have different traits, different tendencies, different things will be coming out of her personality. So definitely I would, if I were going to get married, I would be looking to get married in a society where men have a little bit more equity in the culture, rather than bringing somebody that you think is going to be, somebody that you think was raised in a certain environment and is going to stay that way when they get here. There's no guarantee that they're going to stay that way when they get here. So, yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, I live here in Texas, deep South Texas, and I know feminists and anybody rapping here. To me, I guess everybody's equal down here where I live, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And well, thank you very much for your advice. And again, thank you, Karen, for letting me talk.
All right.
I'm also a big fan of your work. Thank you. And also, shout out.
Thank you, Peter Fox, for that very interesting question. Again, I think it would be best if you were to marry to repatriate to a country with a little bit better divorce laws than what we see in the U.S. or Canada or any other Western country. And because you can't expect that when you transplant a woman from one of those countries to the U.S. that she will maintain that family focus or not get seduced by the laws that are available here. So.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy put it beautifully. The woman straight riding a zebra, with dreadlocks and all of that. He brings her over, and within a month, she's like, "I want half."
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the other thing that needs to be said is it's important to pay attention to character. You cannot expect a person, woman or man, a person whose character is not good, to not fall for the seduction of the power of the laws that are in place in the United States today, or in Canada, or in many Western countries. If you have somebody that doesn't take responsibility for themselves, if you have somebody that can't own up to their mistakes, if you have somebody that can't show gratitude when somebody does something for them, if they act like it's owed or expected, things like that, that's a person that you can't trust.
Yeah,
and
making excuses for yourself is a huge,
right.
huge thing. Yeah,
huge red flag.
Yeah, being unable to apologize.
And if you're going to be with somebody, you want to look for somebody who already treats themselves as an equal partner and treats you as an equal partner. Not somebody who expects to have things done for her and expects to excuse herself when she does things wrong. And doesn't take responsibility for if I want to get this done or if I want to have this a certain way, that it's my job to make it that way. And honestly, that's one of the most important things my dad ever said to me. And it came from an odd area. I had learned a little bit about my heritage, which is basically Euromut plus a lot of things that are not Euromut all mashed in together. And we'd been talking about, this person's German in my class and that person's French. And I went, well, what does that make me? And Dad said, well, that's your job to decide. You make you. Nothing else makes you.
Yeah.
And that's if you don't have somebody who understands that, then you don't have somebody who's going to be an equal partner. And it doesn't matter where you live at that point.
I think there's also a distinction to be made between a woman who is trying to be nice as sort of a way of being seen, and somebody who actually cares about how you feel. It's an interesting distinction. One is just a very selfish motive because it's about a personal appearance, and the other is about genuinely caring about you. And the difference in many cases is the difference between the way she behaves in public and the way she behaves in private. If there's a significant difference, take note. That's a red flag. Another one is how she treats people who can't do anything for her. If she's crappy to people that she can't get anything from, that's a big red flag.
Yeah.
Or people that she has any power over, like waiters.
I still find seeing how somebody treats wait staff is a really good rule.
Oh yeah.
When you take somebody to a restaurant and really watch how they treat the waiters and stuff. If you don't know them very well. Overall, I think if you're looking at moving with somebody in a relationship, unless that relationship's been really solid and you definitely know that person, and you can be with somebody for years and not really know them thoroughly. It's quite shocking when that happens, but I don't know. Moving country, I think that there has to be a big time investment where you can say that you're positive that this person is with you for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
It's scary enough just to move to another country in the first place.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do another call out for people to call in. The number is 310-388-9709. That number again is 310-388-9709. If you have any questions for us, any comments on the show topic or something you want to bring up that's not related to the show topic, then give us a call and we'll get you online. And I'm going to take, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this terribly, Alvarez, 15. Alvarez, 15, are you there? Hi.
Yes, right here. Hi. Just want to say I love you guys. I mean, I always watch your videos, and they're like therapeutic for me. I love them.
You're welcome.
What?
You're welcome.
Oh. For me personally, the reason I got into men's rights was because, okay, well, first of all, I'm a gay guy. I've never been in a relationship. I just heard these things. I read these things. I looked at the statistics, and I've also listened to you guys. And for me personally, it was just more of a well, this isn't right. I don't like this. Something has to change, right? And so that's how I I've got into it. Also, I think you guys sort of opened my eyes. I've seen things before when I used to hang out with these old female friends where they would just it was a little strange. Usually it would, I don't know, it was little things. I'm drawing a blank right now, but from what I can remember, what feminists used to say about how men hate women, and from what I've seen, were completely different, right?
Yeah.
I've I've even, the strange thing is I've even encountered comments where feminists would be like, well, I think they even mentioned, gay men are getting more rights than women. And I'm just thinking to myself, are you suggesting men like gay men better than women? Yeah, right. Okay.
That's pretty funny because, like even lesbians have been more gently treated by society than gay men, right?
Right.
Like literally you had the whole lesbian thing. It was the bosom friends. The term bosom friends originated with female-female friendships that were sort of exploratory, a little bit sexually when they were young, blah, 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 right? And it was all cool, right? And gay men got hanged.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
And,
I mean, look at the Puritans, how the separate punishment for women engaging in lesbianism versus men engaging, in gay behavior. Men, yes, they were hanged. Women engaging in lesbian behavior, if they did it in public, might have to write a letter.
Yeah.
It would be a very awkward letter to read, but
it was, it wasn't the news, and to say that women have fewer rights than gay men, are you fucking kidding me? Seriously?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, it's very odd. I was just like, really? Like, you think, okay, but also it's not just your videos, but also like Barbarossa and Stardust. I mean, even though they talk about, of course, heterosexual relationships and all that, as a man, it does. I sort of like had this sort of epiphany where, personally, if someone tells me about being a real man, this is my line of saying, I give a shit about being a real man just as much as the shit that comes out of my ass. In other words, not at all. It's not, it sort of you come to the realization, like, when you learn all this, that, I don't give a shit if I how do I explain it? It's like you sort of empowered me to look after myself because as a man, no one else will.
Yeah.
Decided to.
If you look at the Red Stocking Manifesto, right, which was a feminist document from like decades ago, right? They basically claimed that male homosexuality was misogyny. Right?
Wow.
It was hatred of women. It was male separatism. It was basically men choosing to reject women because they hated women. Not because they loved men, but because they hated women. Right? And then it's almost like once feminism decided that the LGBT community had some political cachet, right? They're like, we're going to just absorb you. We're going to like reach out a pseudopod and absorb you into our agenda, right? And now we own you, and we own your issues, and anybody who's against gays is now against feminists, and anybody who is against gay marriage is against abortion or female reproductive rights. Anybody who's against gays in any way is now conducting a war on women, and it's absurd. It's absurd given the initial basis that they, the initial view that they had of gay men as like gay women. They were just like
super
fighting a good fight. They were fighting a good fight. Let's just be separatists. Let's just go our own way. Let's just like blah blah blah. And now gay men were initially, they could only be gay. They could only not want to be with women because they hate women, not because they love men, they have a sexual orientation that makes them attracted to men, but because they hate women. And now it's like you're politically useful, and so they will take on your issues so that they can advance their cause, right?
But even now, though, feminists still have to dictate. They'll stand up for gay men, but only if gay men do what they're told. And then they will only stand up for gay men on their own terms. Some of the first experiences I had with men's rights forums online were when I was looking for advice and information on fathers' rights. And, of course, in 1999, when I was pregnant with my son, and my husband had gone through his divorce and was, dealing with a custody situation, and his ex-wife was jerking him around on custody. I started looking for, what have other people dealt with here. In 1999, the majority of what I found were men who have been denied visitation with their children for no other reason than because they were gay. They had nothing else. No claims of abuse, no moving far away, no he's not a good father, nothing. Just he's gay. Oh, okay, well, full custody, no visitation.
Wow.
It's pretty intense. And I'm really sorry, but we got to move on to the next caller.
Well, thank you so much. You guys are doing a great job.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm going to invite Adam onto the line. Adam, are you there?
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Am I coming in clearly?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Hello, everybody.
Hi. So what do you want to bring to the table?
First of all, guy before. Men who spend their days talking about manning up all the time, you always got to ask yourself, why are they so obsessed with talking about being manly all the time? As opposed to just being themselves, which if they themselves were truly masculine, they'd never need to think about it, right? Unless, of course, they were brainwashed as kids to have screwed views of masculinity, which is probably true, so the situation is complex, but still think about that. The other thing I was wanting to talk to you guys about was, this is kind of my view about if feminism is in general, if a lot of the people who are part of it was actually smart, you would think that they'd actually take time to address some of these issues, like the lower, funding going into prostate cancer. Like, can you imagine if feminists actually moved in and did a whole, a bunch of attention driven towards that, how many people would actually like them a lot more? You'd think that they would consider that a good strategy for their movement, but I don't understand. Can you guys explain why they wouldn't do something like that?
Their funding is for women's issues, right? So all their funding,
they have no compassion for men.
Yeah, and because all of their grants and all of their, their entire organization is based on helping women, they can't then help men as well because it would cut into their funding. That's my guess.
Honestly, I think it actually goes deeper to that. It goes to the bedrock of their philosophical framework. Like somebody on Reddit posed the question recently: why is it that so many feminists think that MRAs believe women oppress men? Right? And it is because they're working from, basically their house is built. It's a one-room house on a faulty foundation, and it's built on the idea that one sex is the oppressor and one sex is the oppressed.
Yeah.
And so if you say women were never oppressed by men, the immediate response is, oh, so what you're saying is women oppress men. Lol. Right?
Yeah.
This is the response, right? Because they can only work inside this model. And so when you actually have a model that says that men are always above women in every single possible way, any attempt, any effort to empower that group, right, as a group or as an individual, even one individual in that group, is seen as facilitating further inequality.
Yeah.
right? It's basically you have such a black and white thinking there that if you help a man, right, when you could have helped a woman, right, you are actually harming women, and you are supporting patriarchy, and you are facilitating inequality. This is how they think, and they have developed the most insane and absurd and obfuscating and convoluted intellectual tools in order for them to be able to keep their absolute binary, right? Like, they're the ones who are like, oh, there's no gender binary, it's all a spectrum. But they treat everything as if it's a binary, male on one side, female on the other, oppressors on one side, oppressed on the other, right? Yeah. And they will actually create concepts of philosophy that allow them to disregard empirical evidence depending on who it's coming from, depending on who is saying it, depending on what I infer your motives to be in saying what you're saying. It doesn't matter if what you're saying is true. If I impute a certain motivation or an intention on you, I can disregard what you're saying. It's insane. It's absolutely freaking insane. But they have created these huge, complex, there's like this huge, gigantic, organic geodome around this faulty foundation of this one-room house, right? And they don't realize that what they need to do is tear down the house and build a new one, right? Rather than just build all this other crap around it.
What's interesting to me is that people actually this fools people, and they actually agree with this stuff. And that suggests to me that there is that feminism not only is it a faulty system of knowledge, but that the reason why it's allowed to persist without being questioned is because it actually functions to justify some deep emotional
it agrees with our biology.
Cognitive dissonance.
It agrees with our biology.
I don't know if I think it agrees with older memes about the genders. I don't know about maybe biology to some degree, but I'm not going to say 100%. But
I don't think that's everything. But I don't think that our biology is everything. But I think that because it agrees with our biology, and because all of those old historical memes also agrees with our biology, it's just a cumulative snowball effect, where you have all of these forces, biological and cultural, saying, oh, yeah, they're right, when in reality, they're completely fucking insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a way of relieving our cognitive dissonance, because we want to feel like good people at the same time as we don't want to have to care about our garbage men or, the men laying concrete or the guys down in the Middle East. We just don't want to have to care about them like real people.
Yeah.
I was gonna say one last thing. I mean, the original comment in response to what I said was about the funding delegation, and that does make sense. But Karen got a lot deeper with that. But it's just you'd think that they would have at least some shred of love there, where they're like, why don't we just try and use love and see where that goes, as opposed to just what you said, all this crazy rage and anger. I mean, from their perspective, they're the ones under attack, right? They've convinced themselves of that completely. And, I just don't see, at some point you got to just say, oh, maybe I should just give the other soldier, an apple for some food because they're starving. Do you know what I mean? Even though I guess, again, from their perspective, they see it as them completely under assault, and they're the good guys versus the bad guys. It's really unfortunate.
Well, that's one of the things.
I don't know. I think it's part of it is that feminism.
We do have to move.
Part of it is that.
Sorry to interrupt. We do have to move on. We got one last caller that we're going to try to get in, although he won't have much time to talk at all. Thank you for calling in. I really appreciate what you had to say. And
thanks,
sorry, Ella, for cutting in there. Nephinor, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You got to keep it quick, though. Brief.
Just wanted to make a comment there in regards to actually what the previous caller was saying. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that feminism as an organization can't admit it's wrong, because if it admits it's wrong, then it admits that it has no basis for existing, and so it has to keep coming up with new things to fight against. Otherwise, it's going to continue to be wrong, and it would have to dissolve.
Yep, you're right. It's got to continue to justify its own existence in the world. Otherwise, there's a lot.
Feminism actually has that built in.
Yeah,
and that's an area where it's really kind of a genius thing. They've created this sort of threat narrative where men are always on top. Men always have the benefit of being in an empowered position, and women always have the problem of not having power. And as long as they continue that narrative, as long as they continue to be able to claim that no matter how far women go, men are always in power, there's always this patriarchy hanging over women's heads, there will never be a moment where you can claim, well, feminism isn't necessary anymore because women are equal now.
Yeah, it's like an endless war. We're always going to be at war with Oceania. But what's really interesting is that that concept is actually based on the fact that we are convinced that women are weaker than men. So they're exploiting that, I think, to give their constant narrative that women are under attack. It's power. But thank you for Nethanor for calling in, and thank you for those final comments. We are really close to the end of the show, so we're going to have to say our goodbyes. Diana, did you have any final thoughts really quick?
It's been really great being a part of the show, actually. It was a lot of fun. I was nervous to start with, but you guys are awesome to talk with, so thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being. Thanks for coming on.
And I don't know. Final thoughts. I don't know. You want some sort of a profound final thought? I had a favorite tweet from this week.
You can always come on again and tell us then.
Yeah. Feminists claim that a rape culture exists which normalizes rape. I insist that a feminist culture exists that rapifies normal sex. That's my final
perfect.
thought.
Yeah, I think maybe we can end with that unless there's anything else that either of my co-hosts want to add.
I honestly, there's so much more that I could discuss on this topic that I really shouldn't even get into any of it. So I'm just going to leave it where it is.
What topic is that? Being a snowflake?
Just the framework, the philosophical framework, the feminist lens, the model that they have as to how society functions and why they are unable to assimilate new evidence into that model.
We can always do a show on it.
Yeah, that would be a great topic.
Maybe we should.
We can't get really into it with like a minute left.
Yeah, no, we really can't. So I'm going to leave it at that. And Della, anything else to add?
No, I think that we should leave it at that.
Okay, well then let's thank our callers, and thank you, Diana, for joining us and adding your perspective to the show, and thank you for all the people who are tuning in and listening and will be tuning in and listening, and join us again in the next episode of Honey Badger Radio. James, hit it.
This is Honey Badger Radio, reminding you to take the red pill.